My first guest is Jerry Schilling. He's the author of Me and a Guy Named Elvis, My Lifelong Friendship with Elvis Presley. Jerry was a member of the Memphis Mafia, entourage in Hollywood, but actually met and became friends with Elvis in Memphis in 1954 at the age of 12, and of course Elvis was about 17 at the time, at a football game in a local park. And welcome, Jerry, to Lunchtime with Ira.
Thanks, Ira. Thanks for having me.
What made you decide to actually write a book? Because I understand there was a little reticence on your part because of the typical friends of biographies that come out.
Exactly. There's been so much written, Ira. And, my wife actually got real sick about 3 years ago. She's absolutely fine now. And we started talking about life and different things. And it came up, my life with Elvis and everything. And I really felt, well, is there something that hasn't been said? And then I realized there's everything that hasn't been said. The human side of Elvis Presley has been lost in this big, iconic image. We know what he did, but we don't know why or why he couldn't do something. And so my book is a real deep, insightful, fun things, difficult things at this hotel look into Elvis. It's more, if you will, kind of a backstage pass into my friend.
And it is a book that has been read by the family members of Elvis, and they seem to think you hit it on the nail.
Yeah, I didn't ask for any approvals. I didn't ask for any in fact, I did not want any authorization. But as I finished the book, and I was in Hawaii with Lisa Presley, and I just said, Lisa, I know it could be painful for you, but I'd love for you to read my book before I turn it over. And she said...
But you said you were going to turn that book over either way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would not make any changes. But I just wanted her to have it from me before it got to the public. And, she has a great sense of humor. I get this email, and in red, the first line, Jerry Schilling, she always says Jerry Schilling. Jerry Schilling, I read your book, and then it turns to green. And, she said I captivated her father's spirit, which means the world to me. So whatever happens critique-wise now, I'm okay, because Lisa loved it. And, of course, we have a quote of hers on the back of the book.
When you started hanging out with Elvis, and, of course, he just took off like a rocket and became, as you said earlier in the interview, an icon, there's that personal side, and that's what you write about. It has to be a strain and very stressful to, obviously everyone's human, and yet still have that iconic status. And you saw that up close for many, many years and decades, actually. Yeah. Were there moments when you wanted to just walk away from it and say, I need to just do my own thing and just not be
Ira, I did do that 3 times. The first time was the most difficult decision I ever had to make, because I had wanted to work with this guy for years. I was too young when he took off in 56 and whatever. Then in 64, I was in my senior year of college. I was going to be a history teacher and a football coach. And he asked me to go to work for him. And it was great for 3 or 4 years. And then I wanted to contribute more. And normally when you quit working for Elvis, that was the end of that kind of relationship. And I wanted to get into film editing, and I quit working for Elvis, and I was trying to get a job, and about 4 weekends after I quit working for him, I got this call. You do that editing stuff on the weekend? I said, Elvis? He said, yeah. I said, no. He says, I'm coming by to pick you up. We're going to Palm Springs. So we kept a relationship, and then he came here to the Hilton, and what would happen is I got the job in film editing. I was an apprentice film editor. My first job was scraping off labels of boxes of film that came back from overseas down in this basement. But Friday afternoon, I'd go to Santa Monica Airport, have a Learjet pick me up, come to the Hilton Hotel, spend the weekend up at the suite, working with Elvis, back to the basement on Monday morning.
Well, that's the highs and lows.
Yeah, exactly.
It really, especially he was in the Elvis suite, so there was high, and you were down in the basement editing. That was low, or tearing off the label.
Yeah, it seemed normal at the time.
Sure.
Writing this book, I look back, man, what an interesting life.
Well, you mentioned, and I want to talk about your feelings about being in the Hilton now. It started out as the International, and he opened on July 31st, 1969. But he actually was there when the International, which became the Las Vegas Hilton, was being built, and it was amazing that he took part in promoting that. He was there with Alex Shufi and others to be on the construction site and sit down and go over the plans and all of that. Were you there with him during that time?
I wasn't. I was editing. I was still coming on the weekends.
You hadn't flown over yet.
So I wasn't, yeah.
Okay.
But, I do know how excited he was. And, this was his big first live concert in probably 10 years. He had done the 68 special just for a TV audience. So he was thrilled. The whole thing he had been wanting to do for years, getting out of the movie contracts, was to go back performing live. And he was like a kid. He was just
some
happy.
Statistics in terms of wanting to perform live at the Las Vegas Hilton, originally the International. He performed 837 consecutive sold-out shows. He performed before 2.5 million people, wow. And his final show was December 12th, 1976.
Yeah, I was here.
You were there. That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Was that an emotional time?
I don't think we knew it was going to be his final show. I think if his health would have held up, he was going to play more. It was an emotional time, though, because he wasn't in the best of health. He wasn't at the top of his game. He was going through a lot, He'd gone through a divorce. I think he had reservations about it. He was having health problems. And as there's a log line in Me and a Guy Named Elvis, creative disappointments is the real cause of how we lost Elvis at such a young age.
You write about that in your book, and you say that it was, I think, disappointment regarding some of the movies that he had to appear in or appeared in because of contractual obligations, and Colonel Parker's insistence that he do these movies. But couldn't he find solace or creative outlets in, as you mentioned, performing live, such as at the International and the Las Vegas Hilton, or performing elsewhere?
I think great artists have to have great challenges. Coming here in the beginning was a great challenge. He always enjoyed it. But if we were here 30 nights in a row, 2 shows a night, 3 on the last night. After you conquer something and do it so much, there is a certain boredom that sets in, no matter how much you love what you do. That's why if he could have gone overseas or, done different things like that, you just can't give a genius the same thing. It's, you get used to what you're doing.